So here we go with another video from Meditations, and today we're going to go over book 6. A little backstory before we go into these books. So Marcus Aurelius, so he was born in 121 AD, so that's roughly less than 2,000 years ago. And it's crazy because a lot of people lump him in with like Socrates and Plato, but those guys were hundreds of years before him. That's kind of like somebody putting you in the same ballpark as like Benjamin Franklin. But yeah, so Marcus Aurelius, he was a co-emperor in the later half of his life in Rome. And because, again, he idolized the philosophers before him, the Platos, the Socrates, Rome was actually really, really good during his time. People loved him for that, and they called him the philosopher emperor. Of course, he would never call himself that. He would just be like, I'm just living my life, doing my thing with these principles that I'm living by. But, people loved him for that. During the later part of his life, he just started journaling. He just started jotting stuff down, his thoughts, just everything that he had learned over his life. And he never intended for these things to be published. He never intended for people to read them thousands of years later. But here we are, still reading his stuff. And the reason I love this is because the same principles, the same thoughts thousands of years ago still apply today. Human behavior never changes. It's the same thing. The only thing that changes is technology. Yeah, we can communicate, there's internet now. They didn't have any of that stuff back then, but again, people were still doing the same things, and so we can learn a lot from this information. Here we are today. We're just going to go over book 6 today. Because he was just jotting down his thoughts, there's no structure to these. So in some of these passages, I'm just going to read out loud. Some of them I'm going to give because they're kind of self-explanatory, and then others I'm going to give my thoughts on because you can kind of go deeper into what they mean. All right, so here we go. If you are doing your proper duty, let it not matter if you are warm or cold, if you are well slept or sleepy, whether men talk badly about you or not. Because even this, in the act in which we die, is just one of the acts in life. So it suffices to make the best move we can. All that exists will soon change. It will either change into vapor or be scattered into atoms. The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. Let this one thing be your joy and comfort, to move from social act to social act with your mind on one thing, God. The directing mind is one that wakes itself, adapts itself, and makes itself whatever nature wishes. When I'm thinking about this, when he's talking about the directing mind, he's very... you got to have a strong mind. And the directing mind is one that you're aiming towards a purpose. Again, when he's talking about this directing mind, you are an accumulation of your thoughts. And your life is an accumulation of your thoughts. So make sure that your mind is directed to whatever you're trying to do in life. Make sure you're aiming towards a goal. The directing mind adapts itself. Where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself? And make sure that your thoughts are that as well. If you want to be rich or if you want to start a business, your thoughts have to, I can do this. I want to do this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that aside. So make sure that your mind is directed into whatever you want to do in life. Things valued by the masses are timber and minerals. I think I can kind of equate that to just random consumerism stuff. Do you need those new shoes or do you need that Gucci belt? So he says these random, again, minerals and timber are what is valued by the masses. When it comes to what's valued by the more advanced, he said are flocks and herds. So maybe that you can equate that to stocks and real estate or maybe even crypto. What is valued by the more refined are none of these things, and it's only to keep a good soul and a good heart and be in a constant state of rationality for all social activities. Do not imagine that if something is hard for you to achieve, it is impossible. Anything humanly possible to achieve is within your grasp. If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change, for I seek truth, and there is no harm to truth. The harm is to persist and stay in one's own self-deception and ignorance. Now, as I was reading this passage about staying in one's self-deception and ignorance, I had a conversation with a family member recently, and I showed them where they were wrong. I showed them how they view a situation is not the right way to view it. And they told me, I don't care. This is how I feel. This is how I grew up, and I'm always going to think this way. And right then and there, again, it goes back to his passage. If you show somebody the truth and they stay in their ignorance, it's like, okay, there's no helping you. And it's crazy that This is majority of human beings. We should always seek truth. And then once we hear it, we should drop our ego to be able to accept it and change, and not just, oh, well, this is how I think, so I'm just going to think this way for the rest of my life. That's not a good way to live. You should always seek the truth and then be able to change. Man, I thought this for, a better half of my life, and now I realized I was wrong. Okay, let me change the way I think about this situation or how I view this. But there's so many people that are like, I grew up this way, I think this way, and I know what you're telling me, it sounds right, but I'm going to continue looking through at the situation through, a certain particular lens. That's not a good way to live. You shouldn't live like that. Since you have reason and they do not, treat dumb animals and generally all things and objects with decency and generosity. Disgraceful that if in this life your body does not fail you, but your soul fails you first. I really like this passage because we're living in the best time in human history. Like, nobody's dying of disease like they used to. Just washing your hands increases your life. And so many people today are just mentally dead. Their bodies are working fine. Everything is great, but they don't believe in themselves. They're mentally dead. They are sitting in depression all day. Their souls have failed them before their body has. That one really hit me. I'm like, why is everybody today so mentally broken? Their souls are broken when their bodies are perfectly healthy. And again, he says that would be disgraceful if that would to happen to you. Always keep yourself good, strong, pure, kind, affectionate, strong for proper work, and revere the gods, for life is short. He who sees the present has seen all things, both that of which has come from the past and which will come from all eternity. He really believes that, again, nothing ever changes. We live and we die, and we have families, and all that has happened in the past, and that, again, all that will happen in the future. And it made me think, because so many people are, or not maybe so many people, but, some people are like, oh man, I would really like to see what it would be like in 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. And for him, he's like, it's all the same. We live, we do work, and then we have a family, and then we die. And he's seen time and time again, from great people to regular people, it's all the same thing. And so what you see outside today will likely just be in the future, or, has been in the past. It's all the same. You should meditate often on the connection of all things in this universe and how they are connected to each other. When I read that, it just reminded me of that Cat Williams interview that he did with Joe Rogan, and where they were talking about, he really believes that something put this together, this whole thing, this universe, this world, something from outside of this system that we live in put it together. And he was saying that there's 2 billion birds on this earth. Who's feeding all the birds? How are they surviving? And he alludes to this world that we live in, this universe. It all has a purpose. We're all connected together, and things happen because they're supposed to happen. We should meditate. When's the last time you meditated on the sun? It shines down, trees grow. It's like everything is working in unison with each other, as if, again, something put this together. This isn't just random. Things in this world don't just happen on random. They weren't just put here on random. Everything is used. Everything is ate. Everything has a purpose. And again, like he said, we should meditate on that. Pythagoras, Socrates, Archimedes, heroes of old with penetrating intellect and great vision, long now dead and buried. I really like that passage. It's kind of a simple one, but so many people today are, everybody's trying to get famous, rich, powerful. And I love that he just names drops all of these, these great people in history that have died before him. And it also just makes me think about what would it be like to go back and, hang out with these people? What were they doing? What were their daily lives like? How did they think? Just talking to these people, again, that are dead and gone. But he's like, these people were great heroes, great minds, intellect, visionary people, just thousands of years ago, just to hang out with these people. I don't know. I just imagine, I'm like, man, I wish I could go back in time and hang out with some of these great people and just see what they thought. In this world, there is only one thing to value: to live your life in truth and justice, and tolerate those who do not. No one will prevent you from living in accordance in the principle of your own nature, and nothing will happen to you contrary to the universal nature. Now, I like that because, again, it all goes back to doing what you want to do. So many people are like, oh, you need to go to school and you need to do this and you need to work harder at that. And it's like, well, I don't want to do that. You know, I want to draw. I want to journal. I want to be an artist. I want to be a writer. I want to be a singer. Again, you have something burning inside of you, a purpose, a desire, something that only you have, and you should go after that no matter what somebody says. If you do this, if you live like this, even if you're going against what other people are telling you, nothing will come from that. Nothing in nature will lead you down the wrong path. If you feel like you're supposed to be doing a certain thing, then go after it, no matter what anybody else says. And I really like that. That was pretty much the end of this book. Go ahead and hit a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys in that next one. Peace.